Hello, welcome to game two of this match. Earl versus Personman for the right to play in C Division next season. Here with KHZ.
And we have a game two. So another looks like pretty good board. Campbell doesn't look insane here. Sometimes it's pretty crazy, but it looks perfectly good. You have the basic skeleton of like a mill minion kind of thing. Displace is nice to get rid of some cards as well. Yeah. There's a number of 4 costs here that are pretty good.
Yeah, Temple is, I don't know, one of the more annoying trashers. You probably only want to open it if you don't take it the first time you see it. It's tough to really get a lot of value out of it. And as Kaplan says, it feels bad sometimes. Like it doesn't help you move through your deck. You don't get to buy anything on turns where you Temple.
I'm not a particularly big fan of Temple either, at least not opening it.
And there's some nice synergy between Ironmonger and Mill, and you really want to get up to Displace. You really want to be, I think, displacing those estates into Ironmongers. And obviously, you want to Sculptor pretty quickly on this kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the first 5 you see. I'm not sure if that's Sculptor or Displace. Earl has gotten the Temple, and they haven't seen their silver yet, so they're in a spot where they could consider gambling here on the 2. Personman gets their Displace now. And displaced into, yeah. So yeah, Earl I think can really consider gambling. If they hit their silver, then they can buy a cellar, and if they hit their copper, then they've got a silver left on top. Or they had an estate left. No, I think that's just as well. They don't really want a cellar in this deck. But
yeah, I'm always unsure about very early gambles.
There's some spots, and it's similar with early cavalries. There's like some spots where they work really nicely, and there's some times where you like gamble doctor and you miss the doctor and you just like hit estate and it completely fails.
Yeah.
We'll see, but Personman going to have a nice turn here. They're going to be able to displace an estate and buy something. Not quite sure what you want to buy here with 3. If you've already got a silver. They went with a temple. I guess they don't have a temple yet and they want to thin some coppers.
Mm-hmm.
It still feels like I want to be using my Ironmonger to churn through the deck and get a lot of stuff going on before I start worrying about temple stuff.
I agree. I mean, the decision of when exactly to pick up Temple is a bit tricky because there's no great time to do it here. I'd like to displace something into it more than I want to buy one.
Yeah. And that's what we saw last turn, I guess. You get the nice thing is you get the 2 VP, and honestly, there wasn't really even much opportunity cost wasted because Earl is trashing the estates and not getting any displaced value out of them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's nice to be able to sculpt into a silver and trash 2. We'll see if they get their own displace or. Honestly, I think.
I mean, all the 5s are pretty good.
Yeah, I think all the 5s are pretty good.
Goes for a minion. I don't think minion's my first 5 here.
I had not tracked their deck well enough to know if it was a copper. If that top card was a copper, then they wanted to have. What did they want to have done? They wanted to have gambled their 6, and then spend 2 to go to 4, then play a copper to get to 5, and then buy the 5 and move through their deck faster. Yeah, this is a bit of a sad turn for Personman. Drawing their terminals together. So far this temple has been, if that temple was a silver, it would have been much happier. But both these decks, I think, are 2 or 3 turns away from taking off.
Mm-hmm.
Earl seems to maybe be a little bit ahead in that front.
Get that silver off the deck.
And they knew it was a silver because they played in Ironmonger.
Ironworks, yep. So Ironmonger, that works.
That's a nice interaction. If you're paying attention, you can orchestrate that. And something like sculpting.
Are minions good here? I think minions are good here. This looks like a very minion-y board to me. It's a bunch of virtual money. There's not particularly good other draw. I mean, there's Lost City, but
yeah, the question is, if your goal is to displace golds into provinces and provinces back into golds and vice versa, then it's kind of awkward to do that with a minion deck. But, worst comes to worst, you just displace a minion into a gold and then, buy a minion. Or there's a lot of tricks you can do. It's just a little more awkward with the minion draw because you're never really increasing your hand size that much. So it's hard to line up the province and the displace in the same hand.
Very true. Yeah, I mean, Lost Cities are labs, so they are draw. But minion seems better in terms of getting the most out of your hands, considering exactly what Cyrix was saying, which is that displace reduces hand size by 2. So you're left with not many cards, which is very nice to just minion away.
Yeah, and I guess if your whole deck is action cards that you want to play, plus, a couple of golds and provinces that you want to displace, then at the end of your turn you are left with just a couple cards left in your deck that you can line up. So we'll see. It looks like Earl's pretty close to getting that together. We get to see on this turn what their plan is for payload.
I'm guessing they are going to green.
Yeah, I really want a province before I green. Sculptor did not occur to me as something you'd buy.
I was thinking displace as well, J-Nails. Just with the amount of money they made, they looked like they wanted to buy something more expensive. Yeah, displace looks a lot better than Sculptor there. There is the funny idea of, like you said, greening before you green, which is getting a province and then getting a displace and just displacing the province as soon as you can.
But that would, if you're buying one province this turn and buying one displace next turn, wouldn't you rather buy the displace this turn and start doing displace tricks with displace Ironmonger into minion and then Sculptor to gain an Ironmonger out of exile? You could do all that in the same turn.
Displace is quite a fun card.
Yeah, and the interaction with Sculptor is quite nice because you can displace your 4 costs into, or you can displace your silver into mill and then gain a silver back with your Sculptor. There's all sorts of stuff you can do same turn. But really, like mills, I don't know. It's a moderately lame card here because it's a single buy kingdom. So really, you can at most get, once you get to 8 money, you don't care anymore, and they're getting to 8 money pretty easily.
Yeah, I mean, that's why displace is such the key card here, because it's the only gains beside, I mean, Sculptor's technically gains, but it's it's not what we're looking for.
How interested are you, and maybe this is a next turn question, sculpting a temple for the VP?
I mean, the points are starting to look attractive.
Okay, so Earl does get a displace, we think, 1 turn late. Personman still has not quite cleaned up their deck. They've got quite a few more coppers, and they do take those temple points. Yeah, Tracer mentions in the chat there's displace tricks you can do with Gamble, because the last card, and the 1 card in your deck is the displace that you've gained. So you can, if you have enough stuff in your hand, you can do some crazy loops.
Yeah, I guess there's essentially an auto pile if you have enough cards and money.
Yeah, I think you need a lot of cards and a lot of money, but
it's not actually an auto pile though, because
the last one though, you just gain the last one you just gain all your minions back or your ironmongers or whatever. So like there's
Yeah.
you can gain a ton of free cards if you can do that in a turn. You know, you can get 3 or 4 gains in a turn when normally you're only getting 1 or 2.
Seems pretty far-fetched, but it's a cool idea.
Yeah, I think that's what you're talking about at the beginning. There's like stuff you could do with Gamble that's really powerful, and sometimes it's easy to spot or well known, like stockpiles. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's other cards like Displace, where we're trying to find an optimal, way to make that happen.
Yeah, this board doesn't really stand out, I think, as a particularly good gamble board. But there are definitely some tricks you can do.
So who has the guide? Personman has the guide. I wonder if Earl wants to pick up a random guide at some point.
I mean, if you're not playing minions, then I think you definitely want a guide. But assuming you have your own minions, it's really not that big a deal.
Yeah.
So only have the 4-card hand because you just minion your way through it. And guide obviously can save you though for the minionless dud.
Yeah, I guess most of their cards are either Ironmongers or minions or mills, so it's probably. Janelles points out it is +1 card if you start with a 5-card hand instead of a 4-card hand. I don't think I'd want like 100% guide coverage with multiple guides, but it might be interesting to get to have one at least. So they displaced a temple into a mill. And I assume they're just going to start greening here. I agree. I think the second displace would be quite good. So you can do the displace tricks within the same turn. And as we saw, they could have actually displaced at the end of that turn. Displaced this silver into something and still bought a province, I think, with the amount of money they had. There might have been 1 money short of doing that, but there were certainly lots of tricks that they could have done.
Mm-hmm.
They either had 11 or 12 money. If they had 12 money, they could have displaced a silver as well. So Personman still has 6 coppers in their deck?
Well, 2 displaces can J-Nails.
Yeah, so Personman mostly drawing through the deck with single, with still all the coppers there. We'll see if they decide to match the province. They kind of have to. The way these decks are going, it's going to be tough to do multiple province turns more than once, I think. Maybe I'm underestimating the build a little bit.
What do you get here? Another displace? That looks very good.
The only problem with that is they don't have a displaced target right now that they can displace into province. I don't know how important that is, but I kind of want to have something that I can turn into a province, which I guess is gold here.
Yeah, there's no other cards besides gold that are displaceable into province here.
So that would sort of be my ideal thing to do. So like this spot right here seems potential. I guess they don't have enough money to province if they don't. They're not gonna have enough money to province anyways. Another minion, and I think they can get a 3rd displace here.
I mean, they're starting to threaten piles. They can, between Sculptor and Displace, they could make the rest of the mills and minions disappear pretty quickly. Yes, I think it is time to buy gold.
Yeah. And, well, that was my thought. They should have gained a gold earlier this turn. When they didn't do that, I thought maybe they were thinking about a different strategy, which was going for some kind of display stuff. But I think the gold is probably best. And worst comes to worst, it helps them hit 8 if they need to spend it as a treasure, although I think the goal should be to not spend it as a treasure. Yeah, so the position we're in, the decks are... Earl's deck is a little bit stronger. They've gotten rid of, I think, all their coppers now. Personman still has 5. And Earl has an extra sculptor and an extra displace. And an extra gold. So they seem to be in pretty commanding position here. But, piles are starting to get low, but not, mills are low, minions are low. So we'll see. We'll see if Personman's able to orchestrate some kind of comeback here.
I will be right back.
Yeah, so Personman does the same thing. They mill province into displace, which, you do need a second displace here, but it feels sad to not get a province into gold because now you don't have anything you can replace back into province. But I think it makes sense to have the second displace. This is a little bit unfortunate drawing the displace with the coppers, but again, they have a lot of coppers in this deck, so it's not so crazy to see them draw with coppers. They're also not hitting with their ironmongers as often, or they just haven't had as many terminal plays. And I guess Earl has a pretty commanding lead in the ironmonger pile too. It looks like 7-3, which were primarily a function of that second sculptor that Earl got. I assume Personman will trigger this shuffle with the minion because they have a guide down. So if they trigger a bad shuffle here, they'll be able to guide that bad shuffle away. And
I'm back. Let's see what's happened. So we have a 1-point swing from when I left.
Yeah, Personman played a temple, wants to trash 1 copper, and they did not fully make it through their deck. They did displace their province into a second displace, so they've got that going for them. They have to watch out for, I guess, Earl has 5 games, 2 sculptors, 2 displaces, and a bye.
Yeah.
So they can't really buy a minion. That would be bad. Personman has 1 fewer game as a sculptor. Let's. Can you mute yourself briefly? There's a lot of crackling coming from your end.
Sorry about that. Should be over now.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, I think Earl's plan here just to grab some provinces and can lower piles somewhat. I think knowing Personman has only 4 total gains. I guess I'll say 4 gains that are not displace. They can fairly reliably lower the minion pile and the mill pile if they want to. Not sure how I feel about grabbing that temple. I think I would have just gained another mill and challenged Earl to not have enough gains to pile out.
I mean, that's the riskier play for sure.
But I mean, I think Earl's ceiling in turn is 4 gains and 1 VP from playing Temple. So, as it is right now, they can pile out, but they have to score 7 points. So, I think Earl can very safely take a mill here, and then buy a province, knowing that Personman is gain limited. And they can do displace tricks where they displace province into displace and play more displaces. But they're somewhat action limited and draw limited in being able to do that effectively. And even then, they're not going to be able to do that 6 times in the same turn. They don't have enough of food for that, or actions or draws.
I'm wondering how many games they could actually put together if they started gambling displaces.
Yeah, the problem is they have to have... Right, so if you gamble something, you displace something in a displace, you just need to have a hand size that's like, 6 or 7 or 8 to actually make that work at the end of your turn. And they don't really have a reliable way to increase their hand size beyond 5. Or to get their money above, that would require 10 money, which I think they can do, but that involved them playing many of their minions for coins. I assume they're thinking about something like cellaring a minion to draw the silver and then displace the silver into something and then discard with minion. Some variant thereof. They could also discard a displace, I guess. Yeah, it feels desperate to be getting duchies here. They need to score a lot more points than that. But I guess it's going to be tough no matter what.
Yeah, I'm unsure how they actually score here. Like, this is a lot of lowering for being this far behind.
Yeah. I mean, they're far enough behind, I think, that they're able to play quite risky. Knowing that they're far enough behind that it's not, if they're taking a risky line, it's a reasonable thing to do so in this position. Yeah, and again,
you can make the argument it's not really risky because you're behind. So
yeah, these coppers are just killer in this deck. If those are any cards other than coppers, you could displace them into something useful.
How do you still have coppers?
I think it's what we said. They didn't open with the temple, and the minion draw makes it hard to line up your temple with coppers that you want to trash. But it is tough here. Tough here for Personman. Yeah, so that was sort of I can't get profits, so I'll get a gold and hope to displace that gold. But I assume with almost any draw, Earl will be able to displace.
This looks very trivial, yeah.
Into province, they can play mill, discard 2, then play their minion. I think it's safe to discard 2. I can't imagine a draw they find that doesn't give them enough to be able to buy a single minion here. And
that's game.
So good game by Earl. It looks like the temple open was the way to go. I still think I like the first displace over the second sculptor, and then you can always displace into a sculptor if you need one. But quite well done.